Hello and welcome back to For Fox's Sake. This is the Women's Football Show with me, your host, Lily Saunders. Now, alongside me today is Uma Gurav, and Uma is a freelance broadcaster and WSL reporter at Sky and Talksport Radio. So thank you very, very much for joining us today, Uma.
Thank you so much for having me, Lily. I'm really excited.
Well, I hate to quell your excitement because we're going to be discussing a very unfortunate weekend loss. Leicester City versus Brighton and Hove Albion on Sunday. Yet another blow for us Foxes, and now our 7th straight league loss. Not ideal, quite possibly detrimental, I'd say, to our hopes of staying up, of avoiding relegation. We sit 4 points away from 11th place West Ham. West Ham drew 1-1 with London City Lionesses on Sunday as well. Same old stories, really, from my end. But what did you make of that game, Uma?
Yeah, going into it, it was, I suppose, the last game, looking at the rest of the games that Leicester have to play this season, that I thought this is the place where they could pick up points. And, I'm not going to write them out of everything because it's the WSL and we've seen stranger things happen. But you look at the run for the rest of the season and it is tough, particularly given their away form and the teams they have to go away to. But you look at Brighton and they've not been the beasts they perhaps were. Even last season, Brighton have been really strong in the past, but they have struggled. However, I think ultimately the story was what we've seen for a lot of Leicester season. And, I have to say, I don't think Leicester have necessarily been that poor for a lot of the season. I think it's come down to individual moments. You have games where they've been strong for like 90% of it, and it's a single moment. And we saw basically what happened against Aston Villa. I think it was the week before that they had got themselves into good position. And then suddenly defensively shut down. Defenders are caught ball watching, and the quality from Kiko Seiko, a player like that, you can never take your eyes off her. The moment you do, that's it. That's what loses them. And ultimately, we know Leicester don't really have that player up top, the number 9, who can then go up and score the other end. That obviously is a problem with the recruitment. I don't think you can fault the players who are there. You can see they're trying so hard. But yeah, ultimately for Leicester, I feel like that game could have been the nail in the coffin.
No, I would agree, and it's funny you say that number 9 role. I think we were all hoping that Mouchon would be back up to fitness, and with Jutta Rantala out as well, we haven't got that out and out striker. And Alicia Lehman's done okay-ish. I don't think she was that brilliant against Brighton. I think I read that she lost possession 12 times, and that's not what you want from someone who's supposedly good with the ball and can drive into spaces. So I totally agree with you. I think it's that we lack the goal scoring threat. We have done all season. It's not down to a lack of effort. I agree. I think it's down to a lack of quality, and that's something that I saw people talking about across all the news outlets. Like and the players themselves said it as well, didn't they? They're like always the little details, and you're right, it's those tiny moments that really dictate the results and stop Leicester from getting points. But if you don't score goals, you're not going to win.
Exactly.
That's the real thing, isn't it?
And that's the problem with football, is it's all the little moments. You can take any game in the top flight, in Champions League, and anything, and it is the little moments. And I think Alicia Lehmann for me was never the signing to bring in January. Yes, maybe on top of another forward option, but the only other forward option they brought in was Rachel Williams, who, yes, is a fantastic striker, but also you have to look at the age she is and where she's at in her career. And we can't really rely on a player like Shannon O'Brien to be scoring goals up top, because as good as she can be and as good as she may be in future seasons in a different team with the right support around her, I look at that Leicester team, and I don't know whether you feel the same about this, Lily, but I look at that team and I can't pick out a leader. And I don't mean that in a way that's disrespectful to anybody, not to captain, of course, Santini, because I think they're great players. But I don't see anybody in there who has that experience either of being at the top of the WSL and fighting for the big trophies, the big games. But I also don't see anybody who's really got them through a relegation battle either.
No, I think you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Like you say, it's no disrespect to Sam Tierney, but they talk a lot about togetherness and they talk a lot about team culture. But you still need those couple of personalities to drive the team forwards. And if the only place you're getting that drive and that kind of sense knocked into you is from Rick Passmore, then you question if he's not out there on the pitch with you, if you can't hear him shouting, which sometimes you can, but yeah, without leaders, like you say, without people driving forwards, I think maybe the closest I can see that is Ashley Neville, but that's always been the way that she's played. She's always been very brute, very aggressive, and that's not really standing out to me anymore. And again, like you say, it's not a lack of effort, but I totally agree with you. I think there is a lack of leaders. I don't know if anyone watching would agree as well. Feel free to comment if you do. But yeah, you're right. A lack of leaders. I think that's definitely something to consider from a Leicester standpoint going into next season. You need people to be stepping up and taking ownership of the mistakes. There's a lot of positive talk from Rick Passmore. What do you think about Rick Passmore, actually, Uma? I'll ask you this question. Do you think his positions, being called into question at the moment?
It's an interesting one because I met him at the beginning of this season, fairly early on when they played Chelsea at Kingsmeadow. That was the first time I got to speak to him, and I didn't really know what to expect because, of course, at that point, I think Leicester were in a position where I didn't necessarily think they'd be finishing bottom of the WSL. So I suppose he was that manager that I was sort of looking at as just someone who's chugging along, probably going to stay in the league, but not quite pushing for anything. So it was more about, I know he came in and one of the first things he said was, I want to increase the number of goals we score. And ultimately, as much as I liked him as a person, and I thought he had a lot of good to say, and he seems very personable and he seems to care about his players a lot, which I love in a manager, he hasn't fulfilled that aim. And if you come in as a manager and say that that's your one aim, I want to score more goals in this team, and that doesn't happen, then you've kind of failed in your mission. And I don't think it's entirely his fault because the players just haven't been bought in to do that. And I do think a lot of that's got to be down to the wider club structure. We know they're struggling as an entity. But when you look at the likes of Liverpool and West Ham, who were struggling far more in the first half of the season, the recruitment, particularly at Liverpool, those same players should have been available to Leicester. So my question is always, why didn't you go out and get them first? Because you were in a better position than Liverpool were at that point. So I don't know. I think if they do end up being in that bottom spot, the other thing that I think is going to be tough for Rick Passmore is everyone, I think, to a degree, is assuming that even if Leicester finish in that bottom spot, they'll win this playoff. I'm not sure that's going to happen because if it is Crystal Palace who are in there at the moment, well, Palace already beat Leicester in that League Cup group game, didn't they, earlier this season? So is Rick Passmore then the kind of manager who you want in the WSL too? Would he want that, I guess, is the question. So yeah, lots of questions. I think there's no question now. They can't part ways with the manager now. That's simply not the right decision because the only way they pick up points is perhaps with some consistency and a miracle. But yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure if the direction was there from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what can happen. They might perform something magical at the Emirates or at Kingsmeadow against Arsenal and Chelsea. They've done it in the past, but I don't know if this is the season for that. And like you say, we're assuming that we're going to win that third place playoff. You can never assume these things. Crystal Palace are a decent side. They've got really, really good players, really strong players, and they'll want it more. Leicester will be shaken if they are in that bottom spot. We'll be, maybe a little bit arrogant in the way that we conduct ourselves, and we've got to think that if we put ourselves in this position, there is every chance that we end up in WSL 2. So I think you're right. I think the last chance we have is against London City Lionesses and maybe Everton. But Everton have stepped up their game, I think, since sacking Sorensen. So it's tough. It's tough. And I always try and remain positive on here. The viewers will know, the ones that come back every week will know that the two things I say the most on here is start Naomi Mouchon and Leicester won't go down. But
well, she came back, didn't she, in that game? So you never know. You never know.
She did, but I think let's talk about Mouchon. Why not? But I think the issue is with her inconsistency in terms of her fitness. She's not been given the opportunity to build into games. She's not been given the opportunity to do what she does best, which is provide assists, but also score goals. And without her, Leicester don't look threatening. And without her off the bench, especially, Leicester did not look threatening against Villa. So that was unfortunate. But yeah, we've got a comment coming in here from Matt saying Leicester are a lot better now than when we lost to Palace. It won't happen again. We need 6 points minimum to stand any chance of staying up. I agree, Matt, that would be 2 wins against London City and Everton. What would you say to Matt's comment there, Uma?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I have to say, I didn't watch the game against Palace. I only saw the highlights of it. But I mean, you'll have to remind me when that actually was, because it's interesting. I mean, maybe they are better than then, but my understanding of it is Leicester seem to have got worse throughout the season, because I watched that game where they played Chelsea at Kingsmeadow. I actually thought they were outstanding. And they only lost 1-0 that day. Defensively, they were incredible. And when I look now, how many goals they conceded since then, I can't believe it, because I thought that back line was really incredible. And it took a wonder strike from Kira Walsh that day, which, is kind of one of those goals that you can't really blame yourself for conceding anyway. But otherwise, Leicester seemed like a brick wall at the back. And it has surprised me that they are where they are now because of that. So maybe, perhaps in essentials, they have got better, but it feels like the results are getting worse. I think also something that's really surprised me, and I had a quick look before we came on, Leicester seem to be conceding a lot of goals straight after half time. And there's a couple of occasions now. So I think against Brighton, obviously, but then against Villa, against Man City. I mean, I know they conceded a lot against City, but those like 3 minutes after half time seem to be a bit of a problem area for Leicester. And I'm wondering if it's something to do with the halftime talk. What is Rick Barsmore saying to them? Are they not fired up enough? Is the warm-up not good enough? But I think it's those little things, isn't it? Like if you're coming out after the break and you're not quite engaged, that is when better teams will take advantage. So I do think Leicester, let's go with your vein of positivity, because I do think Leicester can pick up points. I don't think they're a bad team at all. And they have got some really fantastic players, but they've got to stay switched on for 90 minutes. And actually, perhaps that's what we've not seen for them for quite some time.
Yeah, it's fight till the end. They all keep saying it. I mean, Emma Janssen pointed that out actually about conceding straight after half time. So the players have picked up on that as well as you. And it definitely seems to be a problem area. I agree with Matt. I think back when we played Chelsea, we had the likes of Janice Cayman still in the team before she departed, and she was the captain. She was an established leader in the side, and losing a personality like that might have opened up for new players to step forwards into that role, but it doesn't look like that has happened, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it's a difficult one. You're right, we've got to stay positive. I definitely think they will take that game to Palace, but there's certainly no reason to rest on our laurels and assume we're going to win that relegation playoff should it come to that. But yes, all for keeping positive, aren't we?
Yeah, it might never happen.
It might never happen. We might stay up. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. So we're going to pivot away a bit from the football chat and do what we always do on this podcast, which is actually interview the guest a little bit, which I love doing. It's my favourite bit of the show. So Uma, am I right in saying you studied history and English at the University of Oxford?
I did.
That was from my cheeky LinkedIn stalk earlier. But that's fantastic, and what an institution to have graduated from. I'm a big fan of rowing, so I always watch the boat race. So yeah, amazing. But obviously history and English, what made you want to study and kind of pursue a career in broadcasting and journalism?
Yeah, so it was a strange one, because I think growing up, I always loved sport and I always loved, I suppose, journalism, but in the sense that, you know about it as a kind of 11-year-old, where it's you pretend to do TV reports with your parents or you write little articles for the school paper. And when I left school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I followed the advice that my parents gave me, which was to just study what I loved. And at the time, I loved history and I loved English. Um, and I went into university around the COVID time. So I didn't really have the opportunity to do any work experience. So when I left uni, I was really just lost for what it was that I wanted to do. I spent about 6 months sort of applying for everything left, right, and centre. And I remember coming across a Talksport apprenticeship, and I added it to my list. I thought, okay, I'll apply for this. Why not? And I remember sitting down with my mum and just having a bit of a breakdown, thinking, I don't know what I want to do. And it was, I think, during that chat that I realised that actually sports journalism could be a career, because it was one of those things that I loved it, but I never thought it could be a livelihood. I was lucky enough to get into the Talksport apprenticeship, although not at first. There's a nice lesson about never giving up, because they actually rejected me first, and then someone dropped out, and then I got a call asking me to come back. So, it was one of those things where it was a nice little story and kind of, yeah, never giving up. So I spent 2 years there contracted, just learning basically about how the radio industry worked. And I went in the year that the Women's World Cup was on, and they didn't really have anyone who was covering women's football. So it was a perfect opportunity for me. And Faye Carruthers, who hosted the women's football show at the time, she basically listened to something that I'd produced on the Spanish women's national team. I don't know if you remember all of that, what was going on with the Luis Rubiales. So I'd prepared something before the tournament, because obviously it had been kind of brewing, and she put it on air and they liked it. And then they kind of started using me here and there. And I guess it's just sort of developed from there. I went freelance last year, which has been a nice new adventure. Started working for Sky Sports as well, a bit for the WSL. And yeah, I think I'm just sort of seeing where things take me next, really.
No, that's brilliant. We have had a lot of journalists on the show, but everyone's got their own kind of unique story and how they got there. Some, like we interviewed commentator Ellen Ellard, and she was straight in the radio age 15, 16. She knew that's what she wanted to do. But there's been others like yourself who maybe didn't quite realize that's what they wanted to do. And it's always nice to hear the different ways that people land in the industry, and especially us, we're a journalist kind of group. We're all journalists by trade, so yeah, it's brilliant to hear. What kind of, I guess you've already talked about how you were rejected from that job, but I'd say, has there been anything in your pivot from kind of fixed term contracts maybe towards freelance work? What's that taught you in your professional career? How have you dealt with kind of setbacks and mishaps in that sense?
Oh, it's been hard. I think it's been one of the hardest things that I've ever kind of had to adapt to, because it's just the lack of a security blanket. You feel like you've lost something that you can fall back on, and it's really really scary, actually. And I think it forces you to learn about, I think, patience, which I am so bad at. I want everything to happen now. I want to get done. But it's just been a lesson in, I think, trusting myself firstly. I mean, there was a point about 6 months ago, even not even that long ago, where I thought, gosh, should I retrain? Because I'm just not sure if I'm comfortable, being a freelancer. Can I handle this sense of uncertainty for my whole career? I mean, I know it might not be that long, but do I really want that? And I think it's those kind of moments where you have to, I guess, even just look back at things that you've done and think, actually, no, I can do this. There's a reason I'm doing this, or the reason I'm in this industry. And good things come, but they take time. Like even with working for Sky, I think that's something that's only developed recently. And I think as a freelancer as well, you end up having days off randomly during the week where you don't have anything on. And I guess in theory that seems really nice. It's like, oh, you have a random day off, but also it's a day when you're not doing anything and you feel like you're not developing your career, you're not getting paid. So it's one of those things that you have to, I think, learn to be on your own and learn to be on your own doing nothing, which one day, as I'm always told by my parents, one day you'll miss these days or you're not doing anything. But right now, it is hard to live with. And to be honest, I'm still getting used to it.
No, it's a learning journey, isn't it? It's a learning curve. I'm still a student, so I have plenty of days off, and I think, what am I going to do with my life? So, I very much resonate with what you're saying. A little bit more towards women's football. What's been your favourite have you had a favourite moment to do with women's football? Whether that's kind of in a professional sense, in a kind of fan sense, or a personal sense. I always like to ask this question.
Oh, there's been some amazing moments. I mean, as a fan, I think the moment that stands out to me is I went out to Switzerland for the first half of the Euros last year, and I was really lucky that I got to bring my mum out for the second half of it as well. So she came out, and the last game that we watched in Switzerland was England versus Sweden, the one that went to penalties, and we
Ooh.
were behind the goal that
Oh, for
Hannah
the
Hampton
pens.
took the penalty.
Oh,
And it was just the most magical, emotional and terrifying and oh god, yeah, it was a moment that I'll never forget, and being able to experience that with my mum was really, really special. And to just be a fan, because I feel like when you work in football, sometimes you forget how to be a fan. So that was really special. And of course, I am an Arsenal women fan, so I have to give a shout out to the Women's Champions League final in Lisbon. That was also pretty awesome moment.
of course you
Um,
do. Of course
and
you do.
professionally, that was special too, because I had, from the start of the season, been shouting from the rooftops that Arsenal were going to win the Women's Champions League, and nobody believed me. So that was quite nice. But
That's
yeah,
that
I
Guna
think
confidence, isn't it?
I know. It's all right. I'm
You
not an
well, you've
Arsenal
got to
men
back
fan,
your
I should
team.
say.
You've got to back your team. I hear that you have to
Exactly.
back them.
Exactly.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's so nice to hear. And what a game to be at. Because a lot of people, when I ask that question, talk about the 2022 Euros and the final and how incredible that was. And that was incredible. I was at the Austria game. So the very, very start of that kind of trajectory. So that's always like a special moment in my kind of experience as a fan. But yeah, that Sweden game, I remember watching it on my laptop. I couldn't watch. I had to like look up. So I can't imagine the emotions that you would have been feeling. And I'm sure plenty of the viewers will have watched that game too with their hearts in their mouths. So wow, what a game. What a game to be at. I'm
I
so
know. You're
jealous.
feeling it again.
Yeah, my heart's going. Okay, so let's bring the chat back to Leicester City women. The Foxes' final chance, I'd say, at the weekend against London City Lionesses. Please, if you're watching, feel free to comment what you think is going to happen. What I think is going to happen is, what I think should happen is that Leicester need to win. And I don't know if you'd agree, Uma. What do you think that Leicester need to do to get something from this game?
Yeah, ultimately, there's nothing else that really does anything for them other than a win. It's got to be 3 points or nothing. And I think there are positive signs that they can take, because London City, while they've come into the WSL and they have been a really strong side at times, they picked up some really impressive results. They do concede goals. They concede a lot of goals. And I mean, we've seen, the game that stands out for me is that game against Tottenham, where it was just end to end. And I kind of think that actually we could see something a little bit like that at the weekend, where it's just goals flying in everywhere. If Leicester can find their shooting boots, of course. I think this is the moment when you need players like Alicia Lehmann to step up and really, find some form, because this is the last chance. And I know they've got 3 games left. And yes, okay, maybe that Everton game as well is somewhere they could pick up points. But do you really want to be leaving it that late? I'm not sure. I think they've got to keep their eyes on a couple of London City players. I mean, the likes of Izzy Goodwin, of course. We know the quality there, Nikita Paris, but also we've seen the likes of Yana Fernandez, just really strong players all over the pitch who I think can hurt teams. And the other thing that London City clearly they have the belief, because they've come into this and they've known from the beginning that they were never going to be that team who just went straight back down. They've got the backing of the manager and they've got the backing of the institution. And that's the one thing that worries me. Is I just worry that Leicester, I just hope they don't start to feel that they're in a position where they're not being supported by the club, because that can really get to you as a player. And that's the kind of thing that when you're in a match like that can tip the scales. So that, I think, comes down to Rick Passmore and what he says to them before the match, what he says to them at half time. It's not over till it's over. Am I right that Leicester still haven't scored more than one goal in a game this season? Is that correct? I think I read that somewhere. Maybe someone
They
can correct
have,
me.
but not in the WSL.
Not in the
They
WSL.
have in
Okay.
the league and in the League Cup. They've
So
had
maybe
multiple, but I
this
think
is
in the
maybe this is
WSL
the
they haven't.
game.
This is the game.
This is the
Well,
game.
Matt would agree with you here. Haven't won away for a very long time in the league, but we'll still be getting there behind the team 2-1 to Leicester. I love the possibility. For me, London City's biggest threat is Freya Godfrey. That girl's vision is just phenomenal. Just being called up to the senior squad for the second time, I think, or the third time even. So yeah, she's the one to watch. She's the one to shut down, because I think without her, they have no one connecting the defense to attack. Shooting boots will need to come from Hannah Kane as well.
Yeah.
Shannon O'Brien. I mean, Hannah Kane had such a good run in the international window and then just hasn't shown up since, which I think is a bit of a common theme for her, having spoken to other Leicester fans. So yeah, London City is interesting because they drew with Chelsea, but then they drew with West Ham. So I really think that like anything can happen, because that was in the last month, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's like 2 consecutive weeks, isn't it? They've just
So
who knows? Who knows?
I know, and very unfortunately, a commenter here has just said Kosovara Aslani is injured. Yes, she picked up an ACL injury, I believe, in the West Ham game. It would be an uphill battle, but predict a draw. I sure hope it's a win. 1 point isn't the end of it. If we still pick up 3 at some other point and hope that West Ham just don't win any more of their games, but I think that's clutching at straws. I'd agree with Matt, who said earlier that we need 6 points minimum. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult game, and they're going to have to win away in the league for the first time since January 2025.
Yeah, and perhaps also maybe they don't rule out picking up a point against Arsenal and Chelsea. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but particularly with that Arsenal game, that's a midweek game, and Arsenal will be tired, and Chelsea aren't quite Chelseaing as they normally are. So I think 3 points here is massive, because it then gives them the platform to pull off results like that. Just if they have to against Arsenal and Chelsea, just sit in deep, 11 players behind the ball. Don't let them get out the goal. Yeah, park their bus.
Park that bus, that big blue and yellow bus, please. Blue and orange, really, the Foxes. But I would agree with you. I also think teams like Arsenal and Chelsea would perhaps rotate their players, so you wouldn't be playing a full strength team necessarily, and sometimes that does cause a bit of a slip up for the supposed better teams. So I'd agree with you. There's no way that Leicester can't believe that they can't pick up any points in those fixtures, even though everyone else is counting them out. Do you have a score prediction for me then? Feel free to be honest, feel free to be positive, whatever you feel.
I would like it to be an exciting game, so I'm going to be optimistic. Do you know what? I think to keep it interesting at the bottom of the table, I think it's going to finish 3-2 to Leicester, which sounds crazy to me because I somehow can't see Leicester scoring 3 goals, but it's going to happen.
Well, you've said it, Uma. You've said it.
There you go.
I like that. You're the first positive journalist in Leicester's favour that we've had on.
Am I really? Oh, gosh.
Thank you.
It's because you're so positive, Lily. I feel like I have to be positive.
It's infectious. I'm trying to throw it out there to the rest of the Foxes team, but Rick Passmore's certainly got the positive bug, so he's fine. Yeah, okay. I think I'm going to stick with Matt Middleton, who said 2-1 Leicester. 2-1 or 2-2. I can't see Leicester scoring more than 2 goals,
No.
especially with the way they play their football, I think, because it's very counter-attacking. But you never know. Maybe a
You never
penalty or
know.
2.
Oh, yes, of course.
Who
That is
knows?
true.
Okay, well, that really concludes our chat. Thank you to the approximate 20 of you who stuck with us. Yeah, if you want to read up on anything more to do with the women's team, head on over to www.forfoxsake.news, and that will give you all the insight and exclusive access to our content and the articles we produce, as well as everything you need to know on the men's team. Pete, Andy, and Rob do such a fantastic job on that front, and I pop up here and there with my insights into Leicester City women. So head on over to www.fox8.news and subscribe for the price of a pint, and you'll get all the content that your Fox's fan heart desires. Thank you very much, Uma, for coming on the show. We would love to have you back if you ever want to, but thank you nonetheless for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back.
Brilliant. Okay. Cheers, everyone. That concludes our show, and we will see you next week. Bye.